Hey, welcome back to another Get Geekish podcast. I'm Bino. That's Derek over there. Thanks so much for joining us the weeks that we do this, which is most weeks-ish. But we're going to talk about, Ant-Man Quantumania, because we both saw it on opening week, and we're going to give you our thoughts, because the critics and the reviews, they're pretty split on this one. There's a lot of bad and a lot of mediocre and some good.
This is your spoiler alert.
Yes.
There will be spoils in this podcast. So if you haven't seen it yet, pause it right now. Go see it. Come back.
Yeah.
Or if you don't care,
and hey, spoilers, you're not going to see it anyway, then sure, yeah, we'll give you the spoilers now, but we don't want to get upset at us for giving away any secrets or endings or spoiling something for them, because that's not what we're here for. But we're here to talk about it in our very how am I going to put this? I'm just looking at some of the reviews from Ant-Man, and from the exact same publications, there's reviews that are talking about how glowingly great it is, and then 5 days later, articles about what a trash pile of garbage it was. I'm like, who is paying you to write the one up front? And now who's paying you to write the one up the second if you're having this big a difference of opinion on how a movie went? Like,
yeah, it seems to be a lot of review bombing going around in all spectrums of the mediums, TV, be it movies, be it books, be it video games, be it music. They're, if somebody doesn't agree with something, they're going to review bomb it. And I mean, we've seen it with video games too, where people haven't even played the game. The game isn't even out yet, and people start review bombing it.
mm-hmm.
So, we've talked about kind of the superhero fatigue, and I am glad that Marvel made the announcement that they're going to take a step back from their TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kevin Feige or whatever. It was like, we have too many shows. Yes, you do.
Way too many. And I love me some Marvel, but there's too many TV shows to keep track of right now.
Well, especially going into what this is now phase 4 or 5.
They kind of blurred the lines between phase 4 and 5. I don't think that's a real clear cut anything.
Right. So, there's to kind of understand what's going on with Ant-Man Quantumania, you need to watch Loki season 1, because that'll help kind of with some things of who, Kang the Conqueror is and all that jazz. But let's get into Ant-Man. Let's dive in.
That's one of the things I liked about Ant-Man, the fact that there are other things that will tie into it from Loki and the MCU, stuff like that. But one plus I have to give it that the last few Marvel movies I've seen have not had was this movie more or less stands on its own. If you could walk into the movie and figure out what happens from beginning to end in the movie and know what's happened, know what's going on. Mm-hmm. It lost some of the other characters and stuff, but there's hey, here's some characters. Here's some stuff that happens to the characters. Here's some conflict to the characters. Here's some resolution from the problem that you learned about in this movie. Like, I give that because that was one of my biggest beefs with Eternals and Multiverse of Madness and Thor: Love and Thunder is they were just, to me, it felt like it was just a whole bunch of stuff thrown on the screen and there wasn't even a point to all of it. Like, why was this a movie? It sounds like you were just like throwing out ideas for a TV plot and then threw it all into 2 hours and called it good.
Yeah, Love and Thunder was definitely a huge letdown. It had some moments, but I would definitely say that's probably one I'm not going to watch again.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness was hyped up beyond belief, and we've covered this one in a previous podcast of how it let us down. But you kind of have to have watched WandaVision to go into that and kind of understand what's going on with that. And even then, it didn't really bring in the multiverses. Loki set up with He Who Remains. They didn't really acknowledge him as Kang the Conqueror yet. They kind of hinted at it. And then, obviously at the end of Loki, there's the multiverse splits off, right? And they kind of show that. And that's why I thought Doctor Strange was going to acknowledge it. It didn't at all.
Yeah, just didn't.
And at least with this, you get more of Kang the Conqueror. And I forgot the actor's name. I just forgot it.
John. Wow.
Joseph, right?
You keep talking, I'll look at the name.
Anyway, he is fantastic. I would say he steals this movie. Like him as Kang, and obviously, this movie is setting up the new Kang dynasty and it's going to be the next threat that the Avengers have to battle, right?
Mhm.
So I'm kind of excited to
Jonathan Majors. I literally watched
Donovan.
like 3 interviews with him yesterday. I'm like, his name.
Yeah,
Uh, uh.
I totally forgot it. But he definitely stole the movie.
Mhm. And anybody, if you've been into the comics lore, I thought it was hilarious. This of we'll give you some spoilers right now for it. The scene towards the end when it shows all the Kangs together.
Mhm.
I heard outside of the theater when I watched it, 3 or 4 different middle-aged groups of people complaining about it because I have to be a rocket scientist to understand what goes on in these movies anymore. Who are all these characters? Blah blah. That was just ridiculous. Like just complaining with this on the end. But that particular scene, then when it shows them all in the theater, is
Mhm.
like a spot for spot redepiction of an actual comic scene that happens. Like the most perfect way you could have put it from a comic book page to a screen, that scene was shot just like that. And with the idea of what the Kang Wars, I forget what they call that, actually come about. I'm excited to see where they go as long as they can make it coherent enough to be in a movie to make sense. Because when you're reading comics, you can let a few more things fly because readers, you can put little side notes that'll explain what something is.
Mhm.
And they haven't figured out how to do that in movies. If they can figure out a cool way to do that in movies, that might be Marvel's savior.
Well, and then it's funny that you mentioned that because at the other end credits scene
Mm-hmm.
shows him in what 19 something or 18 something, and in the audience is Loki and Owen Wilson, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the TVA or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's a fun tie-in, setting up for Loki season 2 type of thing. And after that aired, somebody's like, we sat through the theater for that. I was like, obviously you don't watch the show. That one was that I'll agree. Like you and I have sat through some Marvel movies and they do the spoiler, like that was fun, but really, like, Bruce Campbell punching himself and then stopping at the end. I'm like, okay. But this, I feel like was actually some substance, something to, chew your
Oh
teeth
yeah,
on.
I got to watch for that because
Yeah.
if you watch Loki into this, then you know that whatever Kang you saw before and the Kang you saw now is not necessarily the same Kang that you're looking at now. It's exciting and
And that's what cracks me up too.
Mhm.
Like you saying the old people, the middle-aged people bitching about it, because
and I am one of those middle aged people that complains about stuff too, so I feel like I can rail them.
Eh, yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. What's funny about it is throughout the whole movie, he talked about how there was more than him.
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge plot point of it. So them being like, they have to make no sense is just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am gonna pick your brain about this. I didn't read the review, but I saw a review where somebody was saying that it was Kang is the perfect setup. The Kang Dynasty is the perfect setup for the next Avengers thing, but wasn't the right villain for Quantumania. What are your thoughts?
I could see somebody making that argument, but at the same point, this particular King was in the quantum, so I feel like it was a great way to introduce how the fact there are thousands of other Kangs and thousands of other universes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you the storyline for the Avengers and Kang that's coming for it, this Kang getting axed is now clearing the way for the others to come forward and do what they're going to do for it. And I don't see why that's such a problem for people to be a part of it. Like it wasn't the right villain because Jonathan Majors was a super stoic. Like every time he speaks, you feel emotion coming off of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Rudd and everyone else were doing like 80s one-liner quips. So there
Yeah.
was a little like disconnect there, but I thoroughly enjoy having my neck snap back and forth between jovial haha sight gags and serious angry actor wanting to destroy your future. But
I am so excited. So one thing that he kept, that was a prominent thing throughout the movie too that he mentioned, and then obviously when Paul Rudd was doing the end exposition, mentioned that something bigger was coming. Is he talking about the multiples of him, or is he talking about Galactus?
he's talking about the multiples of him. I wonder if they're going to work Galactus into it. But from what I understand, and I don't know if Marvel's following what I know of the comics or which universe in the comics, because even that's confusing. What he said was, "What's coming?" And he said, "I am." because it's all of the other Kangs that are going to be ruling other multiverses.
Right, but then he did that whole he sees, the time ends and I know how this ends. And it just he made it sound really ominous. I was like, are they teasing Galactus right now? Like,
They very well could be. I would be excited if they did to make Galactus something better than a cloud like Fox did. Um,
well, and it wasn't that some speculation in Eternals as well that Galactus was going to show up in that, or like because they wasn't the beings kind of looking like Galactus? I didn't watch Eternals, so
well, the Celestials already kind of look like Galactus. Like Galactus's armor is based off of what the Celestials look like. I think in the comics.
okay,
I believe. Call me out if I'm wrong. Let me know. I'd get geekish.
right.
But I'm wondering about that too because he's like on par or above the Eternals on what his power is, and he's coming around. And maybe Kang could be a way that he comes into existence, or maybe he comes down to stop what Kang's doing, or maybe Kang's trying to stop what he's doing. But I mean, if they can pull Galactus into it and make it meaningful, that would be a great jump into an Avengers movie.
Well, and the thing too is that obviously we know that they're kind of setting up the new Avengers, right? You have um Scott Lang's daughter, which I didn't even realize that they recast her until I read an article where, the one from Endgame, she found out she was recast from a Disney investors meeting. So that's gotta suck. Um, and then you obviously have Shuri is the new Black Panther, and you have Ironheart showing up in the new Black Panther, and then you have um Miss Marvel, right? And you have America Chavez, you have Hawkeye's daughter, or not daughter, but Kate Bishop. So you kind of have I like what they're doing with building up to the new Avengers, but I'm curious to see how it's all going to come together.
Yeah,
Because again, this is different universe, like different movies and TV shows combining.
my big fear of all this, and we'll get back to some more Ant-Man talk here because we promised. My big fear is that they're going to try and throw them into New Avengers and expect the same buy-in and cohesion for it. Because all the characters you mentioned, yeah, we've seen little clips of them, but there haven't been any groundwork, and most of them are characters that most people don't know. When the Avengers came out, most people had heard of Captain America or the Hulk.
Right.
I had a little vision, but you go in there and you start telling the average consumer about She-Hulk and Miss Marvel and Ironheart and America Chavez, and they're gonna look at you like, what are you talking about? So there's absolutely no buy-in from the general populace going to see movies, and none of them have gotten their full due of having an origin story as the forefront of a movie. They've been along for the ride. America Chavez was along for the ride and showed up for absolutely no reason in Doctor Strange. Nobody knows anything about it. She's just there. Ironheart is in the movie, and she was a smart college girl that built an Iron Man suit. It's not much of an origin story, but okay, it's there. Ant-Man's daughter was Ant-Man's daughter, and she's smarter than every nuclear scientist we have on Earth right now. But there's no built-in backstory to any of them that people have to fall back on. So I get worried that they're like, "Oh, you guys know who all these characters because you've seen them before, right? Well, guess what? It's the new super team. You should love them all." Like,
I think the only person that's like legit got a backstory is Kate Bishop from the Hawkeye TV series, which was mediocre. It was entertaining, but But I mean, that's
entertaining for what it was.
but that's. I mean, Ant-Man. If you're going, well, you guys were talking about Ant-Man. Ant-Man sets all this up. Kang is going to be the new baddie. We know that Iron Man's dead unless he comes in from a different universe. We know, Captain America's old, and we have new Captain America, which is going to be in his own movie, which I'm so excited about to see how they kind of tie in with that. But I don't know. And I was talking about this the other day on my stream. It's just movies in general, even with superhero movies, I appreciate them, but this movie was nothing but a giant green screen, and I could not immerse myself in the world because it felt too ridiculous, right? There's humanoid looking creatures and everything like that that didn't really explain who they were. I mean,
they just showed up.
Yeah, the reviews saying that this is the Star Wars of the Marvel universe definitely feels like it, but the thing is like the past movies that we have where they go into the quantum realm, there's no evidence of life. You know, Janet Van Dyne doesn't talk about anything like that. You know, doesn't mention, oh yeah, I survived because of this. You know, you and I had this conversation before of like, how did she survive down there? You know, that type of stuff. And then all of a sudden they just kind of throw it at you and go, you're going to accept this. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like that they gave. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, maybe I'm overstating bounds here, but if I did something in another reality that killed billions of people, I feel like I'd need to talk about that with somebody at some point. Like, I don't think I could just be like, oh yeah, oops.
or you hooked up with a Bill Murray alien, and you know, it's one of those ones where you, especially they're talking about there's been years since Ant-Man 2 and this one, right? The conversation would come up, especially after Thanos dusted a whole bunch of people that they came back. Oh, by the way, when I was in the quantum realm, there was a whole civilization down there. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's one. That's one of my main problems with this movie is that they just throw you into this that there's this whole ecosystem and everything like that when we haven't really seen that before, and you're just supposed to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
And
It's just
it was lighting a story about that too, because seemingly everyone in the entire quantum realm knew who she was.
right.
In reality, all she did was her and Kang alone used magic science to put his magic ball back together. How is it then her fault and everybody knows who she is? Did he wave her signer? I'm like, hey, I'm going to kill y'all. Just so you know, I can only do this. Janet Van Dyne fixes for me. You're all going to die now. Here we go. Like,
Right. Like I again, I understand, it's one of those ones where you kind of have to suspend reality, but this one was a little hard to swallow because I was just like, I know you guys have been to the quantum realm before. You have talked about the quantum realm many times in different movies, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, it's like a different planet. There's aliens and or other beings, and some of them look human, some of them don't. But don't worry, don't question it. Don't question why that guy has a power of the sun as his head. It's just like, where did they come from? That's my problem. Two, my big beef with this movie. I was excited for Modoc, but they changed his origin story for no reason whatsoever. Just I'm assuming just to introduce him and be done with it. He used to be a scientist at AIM, and then he was experimented on, and then took over, type of thing. They no mention of that. Two, they should have just kept his damn mask on the whole movie because every time he removed his helmet, that gaudy CGI with his head all stretched out, I was just like, he looks like a ball. Like I can't. I know like Modoc looks ridiculous as it is in any form of media, which
mm-hmm.
some of the reviews don't understand because they're like, oh, he's so bad. I'm like, he's a ridiculous character.
I took it like the part that they did made him look like he's almost in a fishbowl. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, I can kind of see how this is going. I was seeing because I was excited when I thought they were going to do Modoc in the was it Agent Carter? What when they had went back into the German times and they had the scientist that got into the computer and you see that his face on the screen kind of blurred. I'm like, oh, they're gonna make him into Modoc, and they never did. It was the Red Skull's little henchman scientist guy.
Yeah.
But he looked a little ridiculous. But for like you said, what he was in the comics, there's no way they would be able to have a long-standing character of Modoc in the MCU and have it be worthwhile for anybody. They might as well bring Mojo in if they're going to start doing that. Like,
well, I feel like they could have saved him for a little bit later on. I mean, I feel like they tried too hard just to introduce him to say, look, we have Modoc. I mean, we know that they tweak origin stories, right? Marvel has liberties to do that and everything like that. But this one was just way out of left field. Because like I was excited when I saw the preview, I was like, oh, Modoc's in it. He, when he has his mask on, he looks like Modoc. I was really excited. And then the way they like came to be in the quantum realm and everything, I was like, okay, I can kind of go with that.
But here you go too. This could also be Modoc from an alternate reality that got into the quantum realm that got on for it.
Right. I
could very easily have 3 movies later. They've got the real Modoc from our universe coming and then ends up being the AIM scientist, something like that. But I just got a kick out of everybody's reactions to him when they found out who he was.
Darren.
Yeah, Darren, what the hell happened?
It's
Every
not
single
Darren,
time,
it's Modoc.
every time he comes on screen, it does that. It's just like this. That's pretty solid. Okay.
Yeah, my I didn't warn my wife about Modoc. So when he was on the screen and took off his mask and it showed his ball face, she
Mm.
let out the loudest audible laugh and was the only one in the theater. And I was just like, that's Modoc. She's like, he looks ridiculous. I was like, it doesn't matter what form of media he's in, if it's Marvel versus Capcom, a video game, a comic, a TV show, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, he's a little off kilter there.
But I mean, now there's a story going around where the VA, one of the visual effects guys is saying that Ant-Man lacked because they were forced to put the budgets to other Marvel films like Wakanda Forever and everything like that. And I'm like, I don't even think with any technology you guys would have made Modoc look genuine. So,
Yeah,
you know,
it's impossible that anyone that expected a life changing iteration of Modoc on the big screen, I would like to know what is in their cup because it's just not going to happen.
if you're looking for a fun tale of Modoc, Modoc TV series on Hulu is fantastic with Patton Oswalt as Modoc.
Oh, Patton Oswalt is one of my favorites.
It's not very true to. I mean, it's kind of true to the comics where he's an AIM, but it's ridiculous. It's not canon. Anyway, it's fun. Back to Ant-Man.
Now, what are some things you did like about Ant-Man?
Well, let's see. The humor's right on par. It felt like an Ant-Man movie. Um, as much as I gripe about the CGI, it was pretty. It was very well done. With Love and Thunder, it had its problems with CGI when you're like some things look out of place. This, I feel like a lot of things didn't look out of place.
Mm-hmm.
So when that visual effects artist was like, yeah, we had to tone it down because that's why the visual looks so bad. And I was like, I don't think they look that bad compared to other Marvel movies.
Yeah, I actually like it when the CGI gets toned down a lot of the times. I feel like some of the times they go too far trying to show off the CGI tech they do have.
Mm,
Like, to me, one of the biggest beefs with all superhero movies, Marvel ones included, is how they had to write into the script that everybody has a nanotech helmet that they can flip on and off so they can just have the actor's face on screen so much more.
yeah.
Because I would say in Ant-Man, you see somebody's mask go on or off no less than 40 or 50 times.
Yeah, if you took a shot every time, you would be drunk within the probably first 45 minutes of it.
And it's like, we get it. We all know who the characters are. They can leave the mask on, or they just don't have it on to begin with and leave it that way. But switching back and forth 4 or 5 times, and it that part drives me nuts. But like I said, it was very pretty. But when they start getting into a lot of the powers being used and 35 characters shooting lasers and all at one time, then it just looks like a cheesy 70s sci-fi movie because nothing quite matches up. But
I would say like
even when Modoc was zapping people, like that was very true to the comics, how it electrocutes them so you can see their skeletons for a second. But then they just disappeared, and some of the characters even disappeared before their skeleton shot up. Like the timing was off, so you'd see laser person disappear, and then their skeleton zap onto the screen. You're like, "Come on, somebody in post had to notice that." You had like 5,000 people in the credits. Somebody had to watch the movie afterwards and be like, "Oh, we missed that one."
I will say I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with Kang. I will say my one letdown with this one, as with some of the other superhero movies, is I get that he's one of billions of Kangs, right? But he went out like a little punk, dude, to some ants. Like he's supposed to be this all-powerful thing. He just, pushed back that rebellion, and then all of a sudden a whole bunch of ants come in and he can't handle those. And I was like, okay, whatever.
My retort's supposed to be they were really smart ants, but
I don't know. Like they didn't even have the heroes really take him out. They had Modoc have a change of heart and help the ants overthrow him. And I was like, that was a very lackluster finale of that version of Kang for me.
mm-hmm.
I would have much preferred him to have gotten out and have the repercussions been more relevant to them. I mean, yeah, Scott was like, "Oh, he said more was coming. Did I start something? Did I, that type of thing where crisis kind of
Was it
kicked
that? Because
in. But
we don't even know that he's gone because we thought the ants got him, and then he shows up in the movie 5 minutes later with his armor cracked and broken. Then he almost kills Ant-Man, and then he gets quantumized inside of the exploding reactor again. But as we know, being shrunk doesn't kill anyone in the Ant-Man universe. They come back later every time.
my retort to that is the Kangs at the end said, "Oh, they killed him. You wish you would have been the one that killed him." So they know he's dead.
Do they though? They think he's dead. He got sucked into the quantum realm again. How? I mean,
Can you go further in the quantum realm?
If you go by the physics of the Marvel's quantum world, then yes, there's worlds within worlds within worlds.
I think maybe my main complaint is I'm tired of happy endings in superhero movies because that's not how they are in the comics. I get that they want to, oh, feel good, blah, blah, blah. I would have been fine if they would have kept Scott in the quantum realm, right? And it ended that way. Because that's what I thought they're going to do. I was like, okay, this is bold. They're going to set up Kang. They're going to, all this jazz. But there's kind of like, they kind of did hinted at the threat. And then they're like, here's a nice, pretty bow, happy ending type of thing. When we know that that's not happy endings in all these, especially if they're setting up. I want another Infinity War cliffhanger where you're like, what?
See, and I would go almost the exact opposite of that because so many of the recent superhero movies have the antithesis of superhero endings where everything's just awful and everybody's upset and nothing got solved and all you did was go through a whole movie to find out somebody else is even worse that's trying to do something else. Like, what's the point of that? So I kind of appreciated there was a happy ending per se, but it was a happy ending like, oh, it's everything's... Wait. Uh-oh. This isn't a happy ending. Whatever. We'll worry about it later.
Overall, I know we need to wrap things up here. Overall, I would say out of the most recent Marvel movies to come out, this one's higher on my list than the other ones for quality, for story, for just overall. Just because, I think No Way Home was fantastic. And then Love and Thunder was a letdown. They just tried too hard with that one, or maybe they didn't try at all. I don't know. Doctor Strange was a letdown. The more I think about it and everything like that, I'm like, yeah, they had so much potential with that one. Like, I'm excited to see what they do with America Chavez, but they kind of wasted her in that movie. Just like you said, she was kind of just there. Wakanda Forever, I'm kind of excited to see where they're going to go with this. And I think that was a nice tie-in, but I don't know. I'm kind of I want to see more Kang. I want to see the threat more than just in the quantum realm. I'm excited to see where they're going to go with him because he could be potentially way worse than Thanos. So,
and he's related to Doctor Doom, so maybe they can work that in there somewhere along the way. Like,
yeah, the Fantastic Four movie was announced that they're working on it. So,
yeah, I would give Ant-Man like it was a middling Marvel movie that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put it on my list of bad movies, but it's not cracking my top 10 of great Marvel movies at all. It's not going to make one of the best ones ever, but I put it on the end of it was enjoyable. I watched it. I'd probably watch that one again someday. I mean, like it's still there, but it seems like that middling review that we both seem to have about it is not the case. It seems the critics online, it's either love it or hate it, and I feel like it's what you come back to review bombing or trying to pad something up. Nobody can just come in and say, oh yeah, it was all right. It has to be the worst movie ever made, or it has to be the greatest addition to the Marvel Universe you've ever seen. It can't be like, it was all right.
I do think that maybe they need to take a step back, and I'd be fine waiting a few years for something of quality where you leave the theater and you're like, wow, like how we used to feel when we left some of the other ones. I mean, granted, some of the earlier Marvel movies are again not but I mean, I remember when I left Ragnarok, I was like, wow, that was a great movie. Leaving No Way Home, that was an amazing movie, right? But now it's just kind of like you guys are just trying to pump out movies. I get it, but at the same time, take a step back.
Little cohesion to the story is all we're asking for.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're going to boycott Marvel movies. I just would like a few less ones if they're better. And like I said, I still enjoyed it. I enjoy the whole Ant-Man franchise, partially because it is a little jovial, a little more tongue-in-cheek than some of the other ones, because it didn't take itself too seriously. And it had two of my favorite quotes of the summer so far, because I have holes I'm sure is going to come into my shouting mouth at some point. And the advice that his daughter gives to Modoc, that it's never too late to stop being a bleep. That was a solid movie moment.
Yeah, there was like you said, there was a lot of good one-liners, and I will say, I'll leave you with this: the old man at the coffee shop when he said "Bye, Spider-Man," that was him genuinely forgetting who he was talking to. Like that's a legit blooper that they just kept in the movie. So
well, let us know
we'll
what you
leave you with
think.
that.
Hit us up at Get Geekish, all the social media channels. Chime in your thoughts on what you thought of Ant-Man. Loved it, hate it. It was all right. Let us know at Get Geekish. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. I'm looking forward to see what's coming next from Marvel. We hope. Fingers crossed.
What is that? Guardians of the Galaxy?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the next one?
And the previews make it look good. Previews made Love and Thunder look amazing too, so we'll see.
We will see.
All right, we'll talk to you next week. Hey, thanks for listening. We truly appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Find us on social media at Get Geekish. And if you want more podcasts, we got plenty of them.